ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां व्यासशंकरमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणम् सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So we were in the verse number 15. So this particular question which Yudhishthira asks in the beginning is being answered by Bhishma in the verses. So the question he asked was, which of all the dharmas is supposed to be the foremost dharmas? So yeshame sarva dharmanam dharmaha adhikato mataha. So mataha means what is your understanding? And of all the dharmas, which is the most famous dharma to be followed? So we had a discussion on the various types of dharma one should have. So several dharmas are there. So which dharma one should follow? In fact, the short answer is, depending on the role you play, you have to follow the particular dharma. So one has to know the different types of dharmas for a person to lead a very successful life. See, in today's scenario, in the olden days, they used to live with as a joint family. So there are always some elders around or some parents around who used to be teaching them the values of life. So even if you live with any older parents or like a grandfather, grandmother, they have a different lifestyle compared to what we think we are following. So they will have their own ritual, which is sometimes questionable. Sometimes they will do things which are different from what we do. But that is because they were told or they were informed by their forefathers or their people this way. So in those days, there was no textbook. There was no formal teaching like we all have. It was all transitioned from generation to generation. So my father did, so I am doing it. So as the yuga passed from the Kali Yuga also, the handing over of the particular knowledge also disappeared. So it is filtering through little by little, and suddenly we don't have anything really to hold on to. So it is nothing, it is just the way, because we are living in a country, or we were living in an era which is entirely different from what we were brought many years ago. Like the current generation which we have will be different to what the future generation will be. And as we go along this particular path, the dharma will continue to fail. The dharma will not be able to withstand the hard requirements of all these changes. So for one to be successful in all aspects of life, one should have known the dharmas, or one should know what dharma is. So whether it is, Rashtra Dharma, Sudharma, Manusha Dharma, Purusha Dharma, Stri Dharma, one should have known what is the particular Putra Dharma, Stri Dharma. All of them should have been known. Then only you will be able to perform the activity in the right spirit. If you do not know, then you will not know about it at all. And there could be contradiction, or there could be some disturbance. So in the olden days, we didn't have those kind of things. So they followed. Like the daughter-in-law comes to the house, will follow what the tradition of the house is, and in turn it will be passed on to the generation. Like the Varalakshmi Nombu also is the Varalakshmi Vratham, although is something which is handed over from generation to generation. Or some have, in the Navaratri they have this Golu, they keep all the objects. So the reason why we keep the Golu in the house is not for beautifying the house or not showcasing what we have, or what is it, financial prowess or the capacity. The understanding behind keeping all the different types of Golu or the objects in the house is to represent that all these different objects which are there, they are the universe. So they are the different types of objects you see in the universe. Like we have Bhagavan, we have farming. Some people keep train. So many things are there. So the imagination is left to the person and the house, how big the house is, and how tall it can be. So minimum you should have 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So there are some restrictions about how tall it should be and who should be in the order. Everything is there. You don't have to go. So what it talks about here is Yudhishthira knows all these things. He probably has an understanding about some dharmas. And the question he asked to Bhishma was, out of all these dharmas, what do you think is the Shrestha dharma? Or dharmaha adhikato mataha. Right. And the answer given by Bhishma was Yad Bhaktya Pundarikaksham. So the one who becomes a devotee of this Pundarikakshaha, or the lotus-eyed Lord, and such a person is always one should be worshipful. Always one should be worshipful of this Vishnu. This is the highest dharma. There is no other dharma required because Bhagavan comprises of all the dharmas. So when you surrender to the Bhagavan, when you surrender to the Vishnu, or whichever deity you have, you are symbolically offering yourself in complete surrender to the Bhagavan, to the universal phenomenon. So in such a case, you are totally excluded or you're absolved from all responsibilities because you are no longer the doer anymore. You are just saying that, look, whatever I'm doing here, it is actually an offering to you. So in such a case, you're free from those limitations of dharma. That is what Bhishma is saying here. Then in verse number 16, which we are going to see today, he continues the explanation of this Bhagavan, who is of the nature of brilliance. So it says, Paramam yo mahattejaha, Paramam yo mahattejaha, Paramam yo mahattapaha, Paramam yo mahattejaha, Paramam yo mahattapaha, Paramam yo mahadramha, Paramam yo mahadramha, Paramam yaf parayanam. See, the word Paramaha is used, right? So the word Paramaha refers to that Supreme Lord. So there's something called Paraha and Aparaha. So Para means that which is beyond everything. And Apara means all those things which is not the Bhagavan, or that which is all the lower nature, lower knowledge. See, in the Vedantic vision, all of the knowledge which you have gained, like going to university, going to school, going to, all of them, they are classified as Apara Vidya. Jyotisham, Niruktam, Chandas, Vyakaranam, Itihasam, Tarkashastraha, Nyayaha, all of them, they are classified as Apara Vidya. I mean, those knowledge are pure textual, they are to be studied, but that is not going to give you an understanding what the Bhagavan is. So that is why whenever he uses Paramam, he automatically discounts those things which is not of the nature of the higher nature. So this Vishnu here is of the nature of Mahatejaha. So Mahatejaha means what? Tejas means brilliance. And Mahatejaha means that which is the brilliance which cannot be measured. So you can measure a brilliance just by some luminosity, something you can measure. But this particular thing, Maha Tejaha, means the brilliant of the brilliance. So like say, the sun itself is brilliant. So there has to be something more brilliant as sun that is talks about here. So Maha Tejaha and Maha Tapaha. So the word Mahat is said in the word to include the greatness. So Maha you say here. See, Mahat means the vastness or the greatness. So Maha Tejaha, Maha Tapaha, Mahat Brahma. So all these words are Param. So the Maha Tejaha is equivalent to Paramam. Maha Tapaha is qualified by the adjective called Paramam. Mahat Brahma is indicative of the word Paramam. And so Mahat Brahma means he is the one referred as a consciousness or the only consciousness being present in everyone. As one which is present in every one of us. It doesn't matter whether the person is a child or a boy or a woman or an old man, doesn't matter. All of us share only one unique thing called the consciousness, which is present in every one of us. And this Mahavishnu is represented here as Mahat Brahma, means Ekor Vishnur Mahat Bhutam. You will see somewhere later on. Right? So Ekor Vishnur Mahat Bhutam means what? Ekaha Vishnu being one. And he is the one who is present in Mahat Bhutaha. So Bhutaha means not the ghost. Bhutaha means living beings. So whenever you say Bhutam, it means the living and the non-living beings, and Ekor Vishnuhu. So Ekaha Vishnuhu. So one Vishnu is present in all the living and non-living beings. Is also referred here as Mahat Brahma. The one Vishnu living in everyone. So if you have the vision that everyone is an Amshaha of the Bhagavan, everyone is a part of the Bhagavan, then you do not feel any animosity, because you can never get angry with the Lord. See, you can get angry with the Lord, He is not going to come and tell you why you are angry. Because that is the only way of expressing your angriness. You can get angry with anybody else, they will not be able to fulfill anything for you. But ultimately, when you surrender to the Lord, when you get angry with the Lord also, you will see that you are satisfied and you do not get an answer back. Is it right? You get angry with anybody else, you get the answer back right away there. Either you will get answer with the stick, or you will get the punishment, or you will get with words. Correct? You will get the answer. But when you complain to the Bhagavan, when you get angry with the Bhagavan, there is no answer. So you feel satisfied. You feel that this is one person who doesn't talk back to you. That is why all the people go to the Bhagavan and say all those things you want to say. He says you go and cry in front of the Bhagavan. You complain to the Bhagavan. Whatever you want to do, he will not say anything to you. Because that is a way of venting out everything. But if venting it out to other people also not Bhagavan like other people. Even though they say they are Bhagavan, but they do not have all the attributes of the Bhagavan. So they are ordinary people, just like you and us, everybody else. So they will respond back to you the same amount of the responsiveness they are getting from you. So that's why they got friction. So when you study all these things, when you become more mature, you tend to become more calmer. So instead of saying 10 words, you will start to speak 8 words. Then after 8, you will speak 5 words. Then you will speak 3 words. You may speak 1 word, then you may not speak at all. So over a period of time, you will get so used to responding lesser and lesser and lesser that time itself, you will take more time to respond anything. You will think twice before you want to speak anything. Sometimes you say you don't want to respond at all. See, Swamiji used to say, whenever you want to do anything, there are 3 ways you can do. Kartum va means you can do action this way. Right? Akartum va by not being in action. So you need not do an action also, right? Anyada kartum shakyam. So you can also do some other action. So either you can do an action or refrain from doing an action or do some other action. So there are only three possibilities. There's no fourth possibility. So once you understand the situation, how you should act, then it becomes easy. Sometimes it is beneficial for you. See, if you're getting angry, if you're getting frustrated, if you're getting dissatisfied, if you think your anger is going to overpower you, it is better to walk away. And it is not called cowardice, or it is not called like you are a coward. In fact, it is actually helping you only, because anger doesn't, even though you get angry with somebody, it is going to only affect the person more than anybody else. You are not worried about whether the other person get affected or not. Is that right? We are only interested in whether it affects us or not. So, because at the end of the day, ultimately, I want to be happy. You are living for your happiness, not for other person's happiness. Is it right? That should be understood very clearly. If you say that, no, I am living not for my happiness, I am living somebody's happiness, then that is not the purpose. What is your whole purpose is not there. So every human being here, including a dog, including a cow, it wants happiness. It wants, so human being also is not excluded. So understand is important. That's why it says here. So Mahad Brahmaha Mahatapaha, then Paramamya Parayanaha. So Para Ayanaha means what? Ayana means the destination or the abode. So ultimately I have to understand that I have to understand what Vishnu is. And this is the ultimate understanding. Right? So the word Paramaha should be equal to, or it says Mahatejaha, Mahatapaha, Mahad Brahmaha, and Parayanaha. So the word Mahat is a prefix to the word Mahatapaha, Tapaha, Tejaha, Brahmaha, Ayanam. So you add the word Mahat to all of them. Right? Then in number 15, let's go next one.
Excuse me, Shankarji. Paramam means everything.
Yeah.
Paramam.
See, Paramaha means, Para means that which is beyond everything. So Paramam means that object, that which is to be achieved. It's called Paramam. So there are two concepts called Para and Apara. So Apara means that which is not the truth is called Apara. So here he talks about this Mahatejaha means this brilliance of Vishnu is of the nature of ultimate brilliance, Param. You may have some other illumination which is of the lower nature. Right? So there may be, for example, the moon, which is also an illuminator. The moon also is illuminating our world, right? But the moon is not illuminated by 100% because the moon doesn't have a light of its own. The moon is only reflected light of the sun. So even though we call moonlight, starlight, etc., in reality there's only light. Right? So the light itself is divided into different aspects depending upon the manifesting medium. Right? That's why it says here Paramam. Paramam means that which is of the brilliance nature. Mahatejaha. So there is no other brilliance other than the Mahavishnu. He is the ultimate brilliance. Here is all Saguna Brahma Upasana. See, here, when the chanting is done, here the invoking is for the Mahavishnu to be brought into understanding what Bhagavan is. So he says, oh, you are the person who is of the most brilliance. So I am not brilliant. I am not a brilliant. You say, my brilliance is nothing compared to you. So you surrender your individual brilliance to the in totality. So your brilliance is no longer there. Your ego is not there anymore. That is how you step by step you surrender yourself one aspect of it into total. That's what it says Paramam. Okay. Then he continues here in this verse. Pavitranam pavitram yo. Pavitranam pavitram yo. Mangalanam cha mangalam. Mangalanam cha mangalam. Daivatam devatanam cha. Daivatam devatanam cha. Bhutanam yo avyayah pitaha. Bhutanam yo avyayah pitaha. So, see, Pavitranam Pavitram. So, if there is something called Pavitram or that which is auspicious. So, Pavitram, when you say, is what is pure. Pavitram. And Pavitranam Pavitram Yo. It means what? If there is something called purity, then it is more purer than the purity itself. Correct? That's what it means here. So, Pavitranam Pavitram Yo. Example, you can say we do all the rituals, etc. And they are all called Pavitram or to make ourselves pure. Like in the morning, if you're done Upanayam for you, then you do Sandhyavandanam in the morning. Or if you take bath also, for people who do not have Upanayam, you take bath in the morning. And the act of taking bath is a symbolic way of purifying oneself. So the body is getting clean and it's called Pavitram. Then you become, say, oh, I am Pavitra. I'm pure now. Because the concept of purity is in the mind. So Pavitram. But when you say Pavitranam Pavitram Yo, means if there is something called purity, then this Vishnu is of the nature of 100% purity or that which is beyond even purity. See, our body can get tainted if you don't take bath. If you don't take bath for one day, you will see that we cannot come near somebody. If you don't brush your teeth for one day, you cannot come near the person. So our body has got so many things. You eat pungent things, you eat stale things, and the smell or the body reflects all this odor. So the purity of the body comes and goes. The purity of our thoughts also come and goes. Someday we are very pure in thoughts, clean thoughts are coming. Someday we have very bad thoughts. So the purity also varies from person to person and from object to object. But here, Vishnu is referred to as not an object of knowledge. The subject is the one who knows everything. That's why Pavitranam Pavitram Yo Yaha means that Vishnu, who is of the nature of ultimate purity, the one who doesn't get tainted.
Excuse me, Shankar, your silly question. See, this taking bath in the morning, of course, we Brahmins do it particularly. Other than us, many other things, people don't take early in the morning. They take bath whenever it's convenient to jump. So body is for a cleaning process only. Spiritually, or cleaning is not possible. So it's necessary the morning itself we have to take bath.
It is. I'll tell you why. Because when you go to sleep at night, do we know we are going to get up in the morning? We do not know. Every day when you go to sleep in that night, you are as though crossing out death, or you are pretty much like a dead person only. Because you yourself do not know. You have a view that I'll get up in the morning. Correct? Everybody has a view that tomorrow I'll have duty, tomorrow I'll have this. But who can guarantee 100% that tomorrow morning I'll wake up? Nobody can guarantee this. Even a person, even a child or anyone also, everybody from a young person to an old person also, everybody has got a view that I'll get up in the morning, I've got duties to perform. You already planned out for next 1 year. Forget about tomorrow. You have got planned out for next 10, 20 years what you want to do, how many properties you want to buy, how many superannuation you want to have, where all you want to go, which cruise, everything is already planned out. But when you go that night to the bed, you have no idea you are going to get up in the morning. Because when you don't get up, you have no idea that you are there or not. Only other person will know. So when you get up in the morning, you always thank the Bhagavan for extra one day, because that symbolic offering. So whenever you have that view, when you go to somebody's house or somebody, you go to the grave also, why do you take bath? See, you go to somebody's, there's a cremation there, or you go to somebody's house on the 10th day or whatever day you go there, you come and take bath. You go to the barber shop, you take bath. No, today's scenario different. People get up in the morning, they go to the office, they take haircut there, they attend all the parties at night, 12 o'clock, they take bath. It's all not, Shastram doesn't say this. Because it is ashocham. Because the hair which is on the body also falls all over inside everything. You do not see it. You can just dust everything and go. But it is not like this. See, it's a question of following dharma. So, taking bath in the morning, the first thing, you must not do even any karma without taking bath. See, there is a lot of theory about somebody saying that you can brush your teeth and you can do sandhyavandanam, you can have coffee, you can have breakfast, and then at 9 o'clock you can get up, take bath, you can do, no. As soon as you get up in the morning, the first thing what you do is go into take a shower, first thing. Because by taking a shower, you have actually cleansed yourself, or that, okay, look, I've been given another day and my shariram is very clean. At least, I can now eligible to do other karmas. So this is the view of the Shastra. So always, the first thing is you must take bath in the morning, then only you do any karma. You cannot do any sandhyavandanam also, even any karma which you do, pitru karma, deva karma, or your nitya karma should be done only after doing this. Okay, so that is the concept behind this. So that's what it says here. Is pavitranam pavitram. You say you become pavitra, but after some time again you become ashochaha. You go out and meet people, you are not that pure anymore. Whereas the Vishnu in your house, he is not taken bath for so many years. Do you give him a bath every day? You don't. The photograph is there for many years. Same kumkum is there, same everything is there. It doesn't become dirty also. So that's why the concept is important, that this murti or this image which is there is of the nature of pavitranam paramam. So that which is always there waiting for you. You may get dirty, or we may all get, but it doesn't affect the Bhagavan. For the Bhagavan, there is nothing. But you have to approach the Bhagavan with cleanliness. We cannot, because he is of the nature of higher order. So you cannot approach somebody, with the unclean body and unclean mind, etc. So for that particular moment, you should at least do all those things systematically. After that, what you do, something is in dharma. We can't do anything about it. That is why when you are in that mode, offering prayer, etc., one should be clean. Even cooking also, you must do only when you take bath. Because everything, there's a concept. See, lighting a lamp, also concept. So when you light a lamp also, there's mantra to be chanted. Right? So, and different roles are performed different people. So all of them is covered in this dharma. So when say, Yeshame sarva dharma nam dharmato dharmo dikado mataha. So all these are in the dharmas. But if we do not know the dharma, then how will you perform? That is very important. So that is why when you study the Shastra systematically, the scriptures systematically, even though it is Sahasranama, it is so many other things. I cover other things which is not part of the Sahasranama. But by giving you the vision, giving you what it says, you at least know that there is something called this. There's something called this dharma. Something called taking bath in the morning. Something called doing this. All these things. These are all there in different shastras. He doesn't talk about it. He just because he assumes that people know. Correct. But there are a lot of people who do not know. So pavitranam pavitramyo mangalanam cha mangalam. So mangalam means auspiciousness. Okay. So mangalam, when we say, it means auspiciousness. And Mangalanam cha mangalam means the one which is better than auspiciousness. If you think I am auspicious or this day is auspicious, then there is something better than auspiciousness. Or the holder of auspiciousness in total is Bhagavan Krishna. Right? So Mangalanam cha mangalam. Then Daivatam Devatanam cha. So of all the devas which is there, of all the devas which is there, he is the Adi Devataha. And the word cha indicates and. So Daivatam Devatanam cha means there are devatas and there are upadevatas. And there are bhutana means all the living beings. So there are devas, upadevas, devis, etc. and the living beings, etc. who are there. Of all of them, he is the Pitaha. Pita means he is the father. So he is the father of everybody. So if there is a deva, he is not ultimate deva. So if you are worshipping some deva, he is only a small person compared to what Vishnu is here. So, and how is his Pitaha? Avyayaha. Correct. Avyayaha means that which is beyond manifest. Avyayaha. So there are 4 types of activities. So when you do worship here, there are 4 types of activities involved in the worship of the Lord. 4 types of activities. What are those? Stutaha, number 1. Stutaha. That means praising the Lord or chanting Sahasranama, which is the name of the Bhagavan 1000 times is Stutaha. Then Sampujitaha. Sampujitaha means, Pujitaha means offering flowers or offering, doing puja with some other offerings. Sampujitaha. Then Smrtaha. You should remember the Bhagavan in that form. So Smritihi means remembrance. So you can remember the Bhagavan in the particular form or just close your eyes and remember the Bhagavan also in a particular form. Example, if you invoke Shivalinga or if you invoke Shaligramaha, see for Vishnu it is Shaligramaha and for Shivaha it is Shivalinga. So that is called Smrtaha. Then Pranataha. Pranataha means worshipping or doing Namaskaraha. So Pranataha means doing Namaskaraha. So there is something called Ashtanga Namaskaraha. So Ashtangaha means all the 8 limbs of the body has to be touching the ground. Now it is applicable only for the men, not the women. Okay. So women cannot do or should not do Ashtanga Namaskara. They must do only Shashtangaha, 6. So you'll see that the women, when they do Namaskaraha, they are different compared to what the men does. Because it is said that when the women does this Ashtanga Namaskaraha, it is a disaster for the world because they're supposed to be called the power. And the entire body should not be touching because there's a lot of power being transmitted. So Namaskara itself is it's an act of offering a surrender to the Bhagavan. So in the Ashtanga Namaskaraha, there's a particular way of doing also. And there are different versions also circulated. If you go to some other school of thought, they will tell you to put your leg this way. Somebody will say put your leg other way around. There's no putting leg like this. It is just only all your 8 limbs has to be touching the floor completely, including your head. So mastaka also should be there because ego also is surrendered. So shortcut should not be employed. So you must surrender in total. Right? So it's called pranataha. So there are 4 types of activities of worshipping the Bhagavan. Number 1 is Trutaha, which is the Sampujitaha, Spritaha, and Pranataha. So Smritaha also means that you remember the Bhagavan in whatever activity you do. Someone once couldn't ask me this question long time ago, that whenever you are eating any food, you're supposed to do parisheshanaha, or you circulate. You take some water in your hand, and then you're supposed to do the parisheshana like this. The symbolic significance of that in the olden days, they were used to eating on the floor, sitting on the floor and eating on the floor. And they never had this plate, etc. Like all the silver plates and all the different things. They had no dining table, no dining chair. So olden days, you see the people, they were sitting on the floor, and half of the floor will be made of mud only. There will be all mud house. There will not be all these polished tiles, etc., where vacuum cleaners, nothing was there. So this was written in that area, in the particular era, where even if I go to my old house, very old house in my ancestral place, they still have this. So when I go there, they will still offer me on the leaf only. I have to sit on the floor, and it is made of mud in the front. And when you put water in the mud, they just use a brush to clean it. And it is made of cow dung, etc. They wash with cow dung, etc., to make it pure. So naturally, when you are sitting on the floor, you are subject to all the ants, insects will come for the food, because they are also waiting for food only. So by doing parisheshana number 1, you are protecting a boundary, creating a water boundary around the food, so that any of the insects don't come and eat, because when they see the water, they go away. The first point of contact is the water, right? So they say when the water is clear, oh, there's no food, they just go away. So this parisheshana was done in the olden days to ward off the other insects which are going to come and disturb you eating the food. And also when you eat the food, you're supposed to do the Achyutaya Namaha, Anantaya Namaha, Govindaya Namaha, 3 times you chant. That means what? Anything which you eat becomes edible to eat. And anything which you eat, even though it is poison also, if you don't know what you're eating, because the food may be cooked properly, not cooked properly, it may be having salt, no salt, extra spice, all sorts of things will come. Right? Despite all the efforts, you do not know how the food will be, and you're just hoping that it's good. Right? So you are worshipping the Bhagavan for the food to become Amritaha. So that is also Stutaha. Like, see, remembering the Bhagavan and offering that, Parisheshanaha, is also important. So there are 2-fold aspects to it. Sometimes people ask, why are we doing all these things? What is the significance of it? And supposing if I'm going abroad, I'm staying in a hotel, or I'm staying in some place where I cannot do this, what should I do? One student asked me this question. I cannot do Parisheshana in a hotel staying there. People will laugh at me. I said, it's okay. Because sometimes you should not be overly religious and showing your skills, etc. That you're not pedantic about it. You see the situation and then you act according to it. So when you are in a situation when you are sitting among people who are eating in a crowd like this, then at least Manasika you can do. You can just take, before eating food, you can close your eyes and say Achyutaya Namaha, Anantaya Namaha, Govindaya Namaha. Say just mentally, and then eat the food. So this is called Stutaha. It's called Spritihi and Strutaha. So you praise the Bhagavan and also do the Stuti also. Okay. So Mangalam. So here, Mangalam nam cha Mangalam, Daivatam, Daivatanam cha, Bhutanam, yo Avyayaf Pitaha. The one which is not born is the foremost of the Lord. So he's the grandfather, the father of everybody else. It's the oldest person you can say. Okay. Okay. Then number 17, look at it. Yatas sarvani bhutani bhavantyadi yugagame yasmincha pralayam yanti punareva yugakshaye. So yatas sarvani bhutani. So all this, sarvani means all, and bhutaha means all the living beings are bhavantyaha, means they were there from beginning. Bhavantyaha. And how? Adi yugagame. So Adi means beginning. So these living beings which you see here, they are not born just overnight. We are also not born overnight. We are a product of many yugas. See the word, see, yugagame. See, yuga agamaha means as the yuga comes, the living beings also undergo change. So Vishnu is the one who is described here as the one who is of the nature of the Lord of all the yugas. And every yuga, as you know, there are 4 yugas. So we have Krita Yuga or Satya Yuga. Then we have Dwapara Yuga, Treta Yuga, and Kali Yuga. So 4 yugas combined together makes one Maha Yuga. And each yugam has got number of years. The Kali Yuga has got 420,000 years. That means we have plenty of time to go and come back. So we are only, depending on how old you are, you can say that I will be there for another 420,000 years in some form or the other. You may not be human being because the 420,000 years is for all of the jivas put together, all of the living beings and non-living beings. So you can be born a frog, octopus, a cockroach, anything is possible. So there's no guarantee that you'll be born a human being next Janma. Don't ever assume that. If at all we have a doubt that, see, this Janma is already over. Next Janma I'll be a human being, I'll be born again, and I will complete Vishnu Sahasranama next year. No. Is the next year you do not even know you will be born as a human being. It's
One
only
question.
your hope.
One question. Is it control or rebirth? Is
No.
it possible that we can control our rebirth?
You cannot control it. How can you control the birth? You can't even control this birth. You cannot control even the prarabdha karma, what you are going through. How can you control even, you can't control anything here. See, the reality is, you can only manage these things. And birth and death is for the physical body. A person who thinks that I am the physical body, for such a person, he will exist all the time with this view. So birth and death is certainly not in your hands because you do not know about your birth, you do not know about your death also.
Excuse me, one question. Apna, these yogis and all, they are doing this yogi and controlling the chakras, and they say that they are controlling everything, and they go to the Agni chakra and Vayu chakra, and that's where the Atma goes away. It will not again take a rebirth, they won't come back again. They claim that.
See, yogic power, see, there are people who have got Ashta Siddhi is there. There are people who have got Siddha, powers are there. But again, those powers are limited only to the physical body only. They will again have a limited time. What it talks about is they cannot live beyond a particular yuga. So here we are talking about what? Beyond yugas. So they may be living for 100,000 years or 50,000 years, it doesn't matter to us. We are not interested in the number. What we are interested is to beyond to cross a number. We do not want to be a number in the whole thing. We want to be beyond the number where we do not have any particular time frame at all. So that's what it talks about here. Understanding Mahavishnu as beyond the yugas is important. So the people who have got Mahashakti and all the Kundalini, etc., they are still living in the world of astral body only. It's still a physical their body only. They are living in the earth. They cannot go anywhere else. They may come back. They may do more powers, and they'll continue to be there. They'll go and come back. But what is the use for us? We are not getting any benefit from them getting anything. Right? So we have to understand what other people. That's why Swadharma is important. That's why I told you. See, Swadharma is very important. Paradharma has got a lot of difficulties. It is their dharma. See, yogi has got his own dharma of controlling all this breath, etc. And that is the dharma. That is what they've been taught. That's what they're doing. But we cannot imitate that because we cannot do that. And even if you do that also, you will be fraught with disbelief and fear because you do not know where you land. So it is better to do something which you know, which you're competent to do, rather than doing something which you're not confident of doing. That is why Swadharma is important. So one has to follow Anushtanam according to one's own dharma. People may have occult powers, Ashtasiddhi, Arima, Garima, etc. They may have. We are not interested because they are tantric powers. It is possible for one to get those powers. But again, they are only powers related to the physical body or a particular subtle body only. So it is still a body only. Causal body, subtle body, gross body, they are all part of Sharira only. Right? And they are all part of the whole Prapancha only. But here we are talking about what? Yugaha. So Yuga, we say here, see, Yata Sarvani Bhutani. See, all the Sarvani Bhutani means what? Including your Maha, all the Purusha also. Yata Sarvani Bhutani Bhavanti Adi Yugagami. So they have been there, they may be there, correct? And Yasmincha Pralayam Yanti. So when the Maha Pralaya happens, correct? Punareva Yugakshaye. So they will again come back. So they are going to go and come back all the time. Because in every yuga, as long as you think you are a physical body, subtle body, or astral body, or some other body, you are always going to come back with every yuga. That's what it says here. So the rebirth is confirmed here for the person who thinks he is some form of the body. So we have 4 yugas called Krita Yuga or Satya Yuga. Right? So in the Satya Yuga, during this time, the Vedas were created. So the rishis of the Yuga had ample time for doing meditation, introspection of one's own self. So questions like, who am I? And what am I doing in the universe were already discussed, were already being contemplated, and the Vedas were the one which came in the beginning. Then after that, we have Treta Yuga. So in the Treta Yuga, Lord Rama was born. Correct. So Lord Rama was born. So in that particular era, Lord Rama actually established the dharma. How to lead a life of dharma, and he explained how he as a person was able to do his duties as a king, as a son, as a brother, as a husband, also as a role model for even the enemies also. See, even the Ravana also, he was not willing to kill. Even the enemies also give a chance. Even Bali also give a chance. So, but when adharma is followed, then Rama had to do what is required to correct the dharma. So it's called, that's why all the karmas during that period, Rama's period, were performed with Shraddha. And they were yogic rituals being performed. Rituals, Agni, everything was performed in the dharma. So during that time, Dhyanam was more difficult because as you see, as you come from Satya Yuga, Krita Yuga to Treta Yuga, the focus shifted on doing karma and actual rituals. Because it was not possible for everyone to meditate and sit and dhyanam and not do karma, etc. They were possible only in the Satya Yuga because there was no papam at all there. So Satya Yuga. Satya means what? In that time there was no papam. So all the creation were happening in the Yuga. The Purusha Suktam is see that's in Satya Yuga, Krita Yuga. Then Dwapara Yuga came after this. So after Rama, see even Rama was also a Lord. And Rama was also a Bhagavan as an avatar of the Bhagavan. But even he had to go because any avatara, anyone who comes in the particular form has to go. That applicable for even Siddhar also. Somebody who says, I will have Ashasiddhi, I can come and go, all these things, even he has to go because the time doesn't wait for him. He is also subject to time. So Lord Rama, who was supposed to be the Bhagavan of all of them, also had to leave when his time was over. And later on he came back in another form in the Dwapara Yuga as Lord Krishna. So in this Yuga, in Dwapara Yuga, people further slided down from karmas and started creating temples. So they were more focused on creating temple, they were more focused on creating all these structures, edifices, building wells, Ishta, Purta, all these things were there. So you can see how the degradation happened from Satya Yuga, where the rishis were only contemplating on only Vedas, studying Vedas, understanding what Vedas were, contemplating, meditating, down to the Treta Yuga, where the focus shifted to karmas because they understood that people are not that capable of doing it. So Rama said, you do this. So they were doing most of karmas, etc. Then when Dwapara Yuga came, when Krishna came again as the incarnation of Rama again, it further slide down. Now all the rituals which are done in the past were no longer being done systematically. And there were deities which were consecrated. They were actually being, temples were robbed, were destroyed. The rise of other religions came to existence. Questionability came to existence. Then the whole religion came to existence. It became like a cult. And because of that, Dharma again fell one step down. See how I'm telling Dharma is this. Right? So there are a lot of rishis and Brahmins, etc., who were treated as best people in the Treta, in the Satya Yuga. They were being assaulted. They were being punished. All of them were. You can see that. So it happened even in the Dwapara Yuga also. Krishna was there. That is why Krishna also had to leave. The Mahabharata war also was fought mainly for what? You can see the Dharma was not there. A great person, Yudhishthira, who knew Dharma, also fell, to all this, playing dice, etc. He kept his sons, his brothers, etc. as, and even the wife also sacrificed. So all of them, they are all adharma. So you can see how Dharma started to fall down. And now we are in Kali Yuga. So in the Kali Yuga, there will be no concept of worshipping of a God. So the concept of worshipping of God will actually deteriorate. So it will be in some pockets, there will be some people who will be doing some activity or not. There will certainly be less people studying Vedanta. There will be certainly less people studying scriptures. Women will be disrespected. Women will be assaulted. Right? And everyone will be driven by kama, thirst, hunger, etc. And adharma will be flouted. Adharma will be there all the time. So dharmis will not have protection in the Kali Yuga. So if you are doing a good thing, you will be a target for that. That is the Yuga. So what it says here is that in all these times, what do we do? When the Kali Yuga is there, it says, do Namasmarana. Because the other way of doing this is you can study Vedanta, you can study all the scriptures, etc. if you have a teacher. number one. And if you are eligible to study, you can study. If you are not able to do anything at all, supposing you say, I don't have the time, I'm not interested in all these things, then he says, at least do Nama Sankirtana. So that is why in the Kali Yuga, it is said that if you cannot do all of them, at least do Nama Sankirtana. But this particular thing was misinterpreted saying that this is the only way of attaining sannyasa. See, Nama Sankirtana is the only way of getting moksha or becoming immortal. This is not a truth, because Nama Sankirtana was given last choice. He said, if you cannot do anything, at least do this. So the Sahasranama, etc., chanting, etc., started. All Lalita Sahasranama, all the Parayanam, etc., started. The Katha Kalakshepaha, everything started of glorifying the Lord, of remembering the Lord, because there's nothing else they can do. But all these activities are only a step. They are only activity to help you understand, come closer to the Bhagavan. It will not give you the jnanam. It will only tell you that, okay, these are the things up there. You need to prepare yourself. And after that only you can come closer. That's why it says here, Yata Sarvani Bhutani, means all those living beings, Sarvani Bhutani, all the living beings, non-living beings, Bhavantihi Adi Yugagami. So they were all there in the beginning, and they were all the yugas, correct? And Yasmincha Pralayam. So Pralayam means when the whole Mahapralaya, means when the whole thing dissolves after the Yuga is over. See, we are in the 5021st year of the Kali Yuga. So we got another plenty of time, 415,000 years at least you can be there. After end of all this time is over, there will come a time when all will be, because dharma will be so bad that it will have to come to be completely new structures be created. Means there can be no repair done. So whatever people are doing now, it cannot be repaired anymore beyond this. So when you can't be repaired, what do? You throw it, or you buy a new one. Correct. So the same way, at the end of the Kali Yuga, Yasmincha Pralayam Yanti Punareva Yugakshaye. So again the new Yuga will start. Again from Satya Yuga will start again. So all of us who are there, by the time 415,000 years, you would have become wiser. You would have suffered enough to understand what misery is in samsara, and you would have definitely become knowledgeable by that time. Even if you do not become knowledgeable, you will be forced to become knowledgeable. Right? So that is what the meaning of that word is. Yata sarvani bhutani bhavantyadi yugagame yasmincha pralayam dhyanti punareva yugakshaye. Okay. Is it understood, those two mantras? Clear?
Yes, Ji. Krita Yuga and Satya Yuga are the same, Ji?
They are same. Okay. Krita Yuga, Satya Yuga same. Then you got Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga.
Kali Yuga.
So in the Kali Yuga, in the Bhagavatam also, you will see there are 10, 20 predictions in the Bhagavatam, where it talks about how the Kali Yuga will be there. Is it clear? Okay. So we will stop the class here and we will continue the next class. Okay. Next week. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tatsat Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Namaste. Shubhratri.
Thank you, sir.